to the virtual career launch session, helping you to be a greater you. I'm your host, Dali Perez, and this launch is designed to help middle and high school students prepare for life after high school because failing to plan is planning to fail. Today, we're going to talk about the four C's of the 21st century skills, which are critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. We're going to explore how these skills show up in your career, why they matter, and how you can start building them now to thrive in school, work, and life. But before we start, we want to give a special thanks to the Career Launch Session sponsor EXL, a leading data analytics and digital operations and solutions company. If you want to learn more about EXL, go to exlservice.com. Thank you to the sponsorship, we are able to bring this lounge to you at no cost. A little bit about us: we are Love Our Youth, a 501c3 nonprofit organization providing programs for youth. Our mission is to leverage the power of collaboration to uplift and empower youth and their families within our community. Before we kick off today's topic, we want to bring our panelists today, and we would like to ask each of you to briefly introduce yourself. Please share your name, tell us a little bit about yourself, your current role at your company, and why did you choose your current career.
Thanks a lot for inviting us and scheduling this conversation. So, Dali, I'm Gaurav Kejriwal. I am serving as a Vice President of Analytics at EXL. And, I joined EXL back in 2013 after completing my MBA, directly joined EXL, and I've been here since then. And your question on why did I choose this particular career path? To be honest, it was by chance. It was not decided in terms of whether I'll move into a finance role, a data role, a marketing role when I was in campus. As most of us, the students are, right, we generally don't know what we want to do, or where we'll land up, but landed up in analytics. And of course, the staying in this particular field is definitely a choice. And that's something which I've consciously taken because I know that is something which I find very interesting and I learn on a daily basis. And I'm sure, now in this particular age, we talk about data analytics, AI, Gen AI, chat GPTs, and everything. It has become so much relevant to our daily lives as well. So yeah, every day is full of learning. So I choose to stay in this field. That's what I would like to say.
I'm Kapil Agarwal. I am a senior engagement manager at EXL, where I lead data analytics and AI major banking clients. EXL back in 2016, similar journey as Gauch. So I'm good at mathematics. I'm identifying the right patterns, trends, as well as solving problems. And then luckily I was able to join EXL. And since then I have realized it is one area which also fits my strengths, as well as now being data, AI, analytics being a big thing, be part of this particular enough to being part of, I still feel it's a big domain where there are a lot of good business problems across the multiple business units we serve, be it marketing, sales, risk, and it's a good value add that we can do through our expertise.
Hi everyone, this is Vagmita Parashar. I have spent more than a decade now in banking and financial services, majorly in data analytics, there risk and pricing, and recently into the digital targeting or the digital marketing role. Contrary to my colleagues, I grew up in a family, so both of my parents are in banking. So this industry, this field is quite familiar while I'm growing up. So closing closer to banking, how the operation works, loans, installment, all that stuff is what I grew up with. I feel very fortunate that I am part of this industry, creating a real life impact every day, even though it looks like a desk job, like we are behind the systems. But what we do at the end of the day is really impacting the life of like millions of customers, in and in out. Outside of work, I am mom of a 5-year-old. It is one of the most important part of my life right now. He keeps me on my toes. He instigate new curiosity every day, which also help in my work to keep on asking questions, to try things differently, to keep activities interesting and engaging.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And certainly, all of you are in different aspects and in different roles. But what something that you guys have in common is that the topic that we have today, which is the four C's, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, you have to use it in any area. So let's start that conversation by why do you think is important within your role to have these skills, and also from those four, even though we have to use them all in your area, which one do you think is the one that you use the most?
Yeah, I can start on that. So I feel, and I believe like others will also think that's the right or the most important, or one of the important C is communication, especially with after COVID, with a lot of virtual work. Um, Communication is something which is right now little tricky. So I feel that is the most important skill set to work on. It helps to transfer your ideas in more clear and more collaborative way. Um, Something which it could be as simple. So communication can be as simple as telling your thoughts. It could be problem, it could be idea, it could be the solution, but in a way that the other person or your team or the audience who is listening can clearly understand what you are trying to say. There is no gap, there are no misunderstanding, and from there on we can build on a conversation and like take the idea forward or take the understanding forward.
Right. And just to add to that, and I completely agree with Vagmita when she said the listening part, right? Because most of the time, what happens, Dali, is any course or any, vocational training when we go through, when it comes to communication, it is always about how you clearly communicate things or you present things. But no one actually teaches you in terms of how to listen and clarify after that, right? So I think that's a very important part of the communication part, and that's actually sometimes which goes missing in most of our day-to-day activities, right? The listening part of it. Along with that, as again, just adding to what Pagmata said in terms of the communication, apart after COVID, most of the communications have been having on an offline, online versions, right? Whether it's email, texts, and everything. Sometimes it becomes a little bit difficult to actually interpret the tone, the intent of the individual, and that's where I mean it's always better to just pick up your cell phone or just schedule a call and just talk it out. It's always better when it comes to communication. But another thing which I would like to add, another skill which I generally encourage myself and others also to keep on using is more on the creativity side of it, and I truly believe that's what makes us, us special, us, different from others as well. And that's where, basically one simple there could be multiple ways of solving one problem, right? And to be honest, in terms of whatever problems we are trying to solve, it's not that it's just, the three of us are trying to solve, or it's just a set of 100 people are trying to solve. There are n number of people in the world who are trying to solve the same problem. What makes one individual different from other is in terms of your own approach, right? In terms of, and the openness to try new approaches, the freedom to try new approaches also very much critical along with that, right? So because that's where you will come up with innovative ideas, innovative approaches, and you will be able to add more value, to yourself and to your organization and to the work that you're doing.
Among all the four, I believe collaboration is also very much important while working in a team setting. Our ability to work productively towards a shared goal is very important. It requires openness to diverse viewpoints, willingness to like basically managing the right conflicts. And now in modern workplaces where the teams are global and often virtual as well, I think collaboration includes digital tools, coordinating across cultures, time zones, skill sets, so that we can achieve our one goal while looking after each other's diverse perspectives.
And both of you mentioned in terms of communication, and in reality, I think not everybody speaks the same language, if you will. And we're not talking about English or Spanish. We're talking about how they communicate, right? So when in your work, how do you and do you need to adjust your communication depending on who you're talking to? In the terms of, and I know maybe that has to do with emotional intelligence as well, to recognize and to know who you're talking to and how you can talk to that person so the message gets to the other side. So my question is, in your workplace, do you adjust your communication depending on who you're talking to?
I mean, of course, Dali. I mean, and I think sometimes, to be honest, we don't even notice that we are actually changing our tone, changing the way we are communicating with, with the team members we are working with. So let's say if you're talking to, someone very senior, right? You have to ensure that you have to, keep your communication very crisp to the point, along with some takeaways that you need to take out from that from that particular conversation, or you need to give away, right? So that is one. If you're talking to a team member, let's say the team member is in distress, so you actually have to have a very empathetic ear at that point of time and understand, listen them through, and also explain in terms of what they can do to actually get out of that particular situation, right? When you're talking to the clients, the tone, the messaging becomes very different, because there are a lot of details which you need to be very structured about when you're talking to a particular client. And you need to define the next steps accordingly, and you have to decide also what to share versus not to share, to be very honest. So yeah, definitely you have to, one has to do that, separate out, in terms of different approaches of communication, the tone, the messaging, the level of information, everything depends on who you're talking to.
So actually, it's a very good question. Adding to what Gaurav said, right? Understand the other person or the other team from what background they're coming from. So I can quote an example from my industry. So in banking, with every client, we have a lot of jargons or a lot of abbreviations, right? Which not a new person joining the team may not understand directly what we are talking about. So recently, like 1 year back, we I transitioned from a previous client to a new client. So when I was building the team, when we were having these discussion, I sometimes tend to use the terms which were very specific to the previous client, and I realized that the team is not capturing it, or they're not able to um, understand the keywords or understand the words directly. So then I thought, okay, let me see what is the background of my team, what are the terminologies they are familiar with. And then in the discussion, rather than going straight forward and having this assumption that everyone is on the same page, I try to break those keywords into simple language, like what everyone in the team could understand and relate.
I think the major key is understanding the right audience, where they're coming from, how do easily they understand what we are communicating to them. So the key basically, like, be it a leader, be it teammate, be it client, and also like while working in big organizations, we work with people with diverse skill sets, diverse business units. So there could be people who are very technical in nature, some people who would be like taking working with the creative functions. So we have to simplify or make our narratives either more detailed or simplified based on how the audience is, how big the audience is, or if we have talked to a small team. All depends. Like first, the first step is always like understanding the audience.
Absolutely. And I love that. Simplify. Sometimes less word and more specific, right? You go straight to the point. instead of doing this whole a lot of words. And that goes back to what you guys are saying, like not everybody hears the same way. You got to be very aware of who you're talking to so the message goes across, right? Another thing that was mentioned that it caught my attention was that it says creativity makes you special. What do you think that in terms of how creativity takes a great place in your workplace, especially when there's difficult situation or when we need to find solutions?
Like even our technical jobs need some creative thinking to solve problems or discover new opportunity areas. So I'll give you a example. Like sometimes, like we often have to like turn our complicated data into simple visuals like charts, color signals, short key takeaways. So once we explain these like our trends by turning the numbers into short story, we have to be very creative about how the audience can easily understand what we are saying, and be it like understanding with the right trends or improving the processes. What we generally do is coming out angles, how people perceive it, as well as identifying the right ways to make things happen. It could be process efficiencies, it could be bringing out new to implement to solving the problem statements.
Absolutely. I think bringing new things to the table, it's the key, right? And as we say, like, I mean, we say it in Spanish, like two heads thinks more than one. I don't know how that says in English, but it's a reality when you have more than one people thinking and all of you can, bring new ideas. That's when the solutions comes to the table, and that take us to the teamwork, right? Because a lot of people don't want to work with teams, but sometimes it's needed. So what would you say is the key, especially for those people that they like to work alone, to understand and to successfully work with teams, have that collaboration?
In our nature of job, where we have to collaborate with the like from the business side to take the requirements, and then we need to interact with the technology team, data teams. There are compliance team in especially in when we are working in banking. So it becomes a very crucial thing to actually um, understand the role of each and every aspect, each and every team, and then like you have to keep transparency with all the teams on like what their role is. You have to keep everyone in loop so that when you actually do a collaborative effort, so you're working for one goal, like that is the success of your project, uh, and that and collaboration becomes a very really important thing, especially in our role.
I think
Yeah.
the most important part, Dali, is, for any individual to understand that any piece or success of, a company, or success for your success is also not just dependent only on you, right? To Ravi's point, right? It's very important that one collaborates with others. And that's where, as Kapil mentioned at the very beginning, right? All these four C's are very much interlinked with each other: collaboration, the critical thinking, the creativity, the communication. Everything needs to come together. And I think if you combine all the rest of the three C's together, that actually, to be honest, that might be called as collaboration itself. But yeah, definitely we need to understand. And during collaboration, right, whenever you're working in a team, right, one also needs to understand what are the some of the, I would say, skills, specialities of each individual, right? At some or the other pieces, you might be good yourself, but there might be certain skills, certain areas where your peers, your team members are very good at. So it's important to understand who is good at what, and take that learning, take that understanding from the other individual, imbibe that into yourself, your work area, to make your project, your team, and your company, a success. Right. So that's where, again, collaboration has multiple aspects to it. But I think it's, without that, one individually yourself. I mean, individually oneself can also not be successful without that.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And I want to ask all of you, if there's any time or project specifically that you can think of that you will say, I will definitely more, I was not going to be able to finish it if it wasn't for teamwork, if it wasn't for collaboration, if it wasn't for that help from that teacher, from that other person. If there's any specifics that or any story that you can bring up. And while you guys think, because sometimes we got to look into the memory, I want to ask you, and I want to go back to the part of communication, because when we're collaborating or when we're doing teamwork, communication, critical thinking, all that, sometimes things doesn't go the way we thought they would go, right? And that's when it comes the feedback. That's when it comes uh, the construct, the criticism that we do just to be better, if you will. How do you manage? How do you give the feedback, and how do you manage receiving it, in terms of if it was something that you did that wasn't good and wasn't the great way? How do you receive that, and how do you give it as well?
Right? So any feedback or any criticism may not be the right word in a very corporate environment, right? Everyone is honest. Everyone is trying to help out collaboratively to a single goal, I would say, and majority of the people are honest, if not all. So never take it personal. It could be something that is part of a situation which could have been handled better or could have been looked at a different perspective. Listening, of course, is the main key. Like, you listen, you understand, you can take your own time to reflect upon what could have been better, what could have been like a different situation if this step would have been done the other way, or if the priorities could have been moved. um, Work on that as much, and always be open to in a two-way communication while you are working on your criticism on your area, opportunity area, right? So keep on taking a regular feedback or regular thought process, like, I understand, I understood this, now I'm taking a different approach. These are the steps, or these are the things I'm planning to do. Does they align with the common goal? Should this be the right path? Happy to pivot wherever it needs a change. Yeah, so I think that is how I take feedback or any back loop into consideration.
Right. Along with that, I'll just like to add one thing, in terms of giving the feedback, one thing which, any leader or any individual manager or individual should understand is that you give positive feedback in a forum, and any points of improvement or negative feedback should be done in a one-on-one, because that's when you will be able to make that, you know, uh, inter interpersonal, I would say connection in terms of sharing what you think the individual needs to improve upon, as well as hear the individual out in terms of what are the challenges they are facing probably, and that's where those areas are coming out, or those negative feedback is coming out, right? So it's important one should follow on that particular function, as well as when you, as Bhagwat also mentioned, right? None of the feedback in work setting, or I would say otherwise as well, should not be taken to your heart. It should not be taken personally. One should understand that any feedback that is being given or is being shared is for your own success, for your own growth. And the focus should not be about reading those words specifically, what are being spoken, reading those exact approach as well, what is being shared with you. The feedback should be taken in a way to understand exactly what is the primary skill that you need to achieve or you need to improve upon. How you do it is something that you yourself can decide on your own, as well. Of course, you can take inputs from your seniors, from the person who's giving feedback as well, but try to understand the objective part of it.
Absolutely, I love that because we shouldn't take anything personal. We should evaluate it and see if it really is something that applies to us and if it's really something that we need to change because that's how we grow, right? Listening to that feedback, especially from the people near to you that really wants to see you grow. Because in reality, there's people that just want to say a critic just to hurt you, but because that's the world that we live in. But mostly when we're working with colleagues and we're a teamwork and they give you feedback, we should not take it personal. Just let me listen to this and see how can I improve and be better, right? So I want to go back to the question that I asked you. I don't know if you guys have some story, something that you remember, specific time, or you could say like if it wasn't for this person or this team collaboration really helped this project to come to life or to finish it.
One particular example that happened. So I was preparing for a big client meeting where I was creating a presentation. As part of that presentation, I worked very hard, included a lot of information, and then for a second, I approached one of my colleague to provide any kind of feedback, how the presentation looks like, and my colleague helped me providing that it has a lot of technical terms, a lot of information, a lot of text, which would make it difficult for, let's say, the senior leadership, difficult to understand. So at first glance of it, when I heard that feedback, I got defensive for a bit, but then I learned that I should take it in more positively. I made the changes, I made it more graphical, and as well as reduce the text as well as technicalities. And when I presented to the client, it actually went well. They had a very engaging conversation with the right questions. So that feedback actually helped out. So what I learned from that instance is taking a feedback with an open mind, with a
Thank you for sharing that. It does. I was asking if any of you have any other story that you can think of or something that you want to cherish in share in that term.
Yeah. So it's not a story per se, but something which I can add on. It's part, so any of the work which we do today needs some kind of collaboration. It could be with the team, it could be with the individual, it could be with your direct manager, or it could be even someone like you don't know, but if you feel like that they are the expert on the subject, you can just go and ask them and you can get tons of help. So whenever in this setting where you are trying to build something, you are trying to do something, my one of the first steps is to start asking question. It may not be a straightforward help, but something which I can learn or use from others experiences, or some work which they have done in the past which I can build on, I can learn from, is something which I think is very profitable. It helps into the process. It makes me think broader with different perspective, and it never harms to like ask questions or ask for help or even ask for thoughts to your colleagues or to your manager.
That's great. Thank you so much for adding that. And as we wrap this conversation, any final thoughts, anything additional that you want to add to this conversation in terms of those four skills that we need in this century?
I think the final thoughts would be for specifically for students, do not think that you will have all four C's at the beginning of your career or even after 10 years of your career as well. These are few things which you will keep on learning, and so therefore always keep that learning hat on. You will keep on improving. Take time to reflect, take time to learn, take time to make mistakes as well. It's absolutely fine. You will not be perfect on day one, not even after 15 years, 20 years. The important part is you learn, make mistakes, you learn, and keep improving.
Yes, improving every day. I always say that I'm going to be a student forever and ever because there's someone that's ahead of me and will be ahead of me in any time of my life. So there's always something to learn, right? This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And before we go, I want to ask you guys like some like hot seat questions, if you will. I would like to ask each of you if you are a coffee person or a tea person, or none of that. Here at the organization, I could say we're a little bit divided. Me and the operations manager, which is behind the scenes, we're coffee persons, but the director, she's more tea. So how about you guys?
Yeah, I'm a big tea person. So being a Indian, like we have that masala tea, which is like the chai, and it's the tea with milk and all the cinnamon and cloves and spices. So I love that. I at least need like a cup to wake me up, and then a cup in the evening.
Mm. A tea that I love is the chai tea. I love that one.
No, I'm a little. I wouldn't say I'm either of those two. I generally don't have either. But if I have to have either of them, it will be coffee, not tea.
Awesome. So if before we go, thinking about everything that we've talked about, if you were gonna give your younger self an advice, what would that be?
For me, it will be don't stress out. Everything works out. And everything works out best at the end. So don't worry about things in the moment. Just take simple steps, take things forward, and it will turn out beautiful.
So, on the similar lines, actually, there is a verse in Bhagavad Gita which I actually try to follow a lot, and that's basically that it's the results are not in your hands. So do not stress about those. Just keep on working in the right direction, right? Because that's something that is in your control. Result never was, never is, never will be. So yeah, that's what I generally follow.
And I would say like always like to people, talk to peers, your seniors, everyone, like get more perspective. There's always a learning curve. Things will work out definitely well. Uh, just to add like always having that learning hat on and don't work in silos. Always like communicate with people.
Amazing. That's amazing. This has been a great conversation. Well, thank you so much to our lovely panelists for taking the time today to be part of our career lounge session. And thank you for joining us. We hope today's conversation has given you insight and clarity on making plans for life after high school. We want to give a special thanks to the Career Lounge session sponsor EXL, a leading data analytics and digital solutions company. Learn more about EXL at exlservice.com. Thank you to the sponsorship. We are able to bring this lounge to you at no cost. We look forward to seeing you at the next Career Lounge sessions. All the sessions are here on YouTube. So make sure you go to the playlist and watch them all. Share with your friends and don't forget like, comment, subscribe, and see you here for future sessions. Thank you for joining us.